Let's get ready to rumble!
So I saw you made some comments earlier regarding the situation with Jack Catteral and Josh Taylor in their rematch. The comments that you've made saying that the Zone don't think that this is a pay-per-view fight. Is that right?
I just said that it's an expensive fight. So we would love to add that to the schedule, but I think to make the fight for the levels that it's going to cost would lend itself to being a pay-per-view, and I don't think it would sit as a pay-per-view on the Zone. My conversations were with Sam, look, if we can get that fight on another platform on pay-per-view, 100%, we wouldn't have a problem with Jack doing that. So there's lots of talks ongoing with Top Rank this week, but we want Jack to get the opportunity. You know, he wants that fight. We'll see if we can make it, but if not, happy for it to be for someone to put that fight on.
It's time for Jack Catteral to move on. Forget avenging the controversial loss. He's pulled out of an eliminator with Richardson Hitchens on a hope that this Jack Catteral fight will happen. And Eddie's saying if another broadcaster can put it on pay-per-view, I'm assuming ESPN, maybe Sky or TNT, like, let's keep it real with Eddie Hearn. Why would Frank Warren do it if you wouldn't do it? Why would Ben Shalom do it if you wouldn't do it? And let's not even entertain that fight being pay-per-view in America. Let's not even entertain that. Bob doesn't know how to promote his foreign imports in America, right? That's proven. So all the people saying he's a great promoter, he's great with established stars in America. You bring him anyone from foreign, and he can't do nothing with them. Jack had his pity party when the decision didn't go his way. He should have got the decision. That's fair enough, yeah? But let's keep it real. Couldn't stop Jorge Linares, a past Jorge Linares. Couldn't stop the Irish dude, the unheralded Irish dude he fought, in his 2 Matchroom appearances that I can remember. Didn't excite in neither fight. What is it? 3 or 4 fights in 4 years? You're not active, you're not exciting, you're not scoring knockouts. Yeah? All the hoorah surrounding the Josh Taylor fight was in 2022. Yeah? It's 2024. What have you done for me lately? He had an eliminator on his lap against Richardson Hitchens, and perhaps he didn't fancy it. It is a bit of a booby prize, trying to box this 5'10" piston jab, 74-inch reach kid. Yeah, it is a booby prize, but that's boxing. That's boxing. You had an eliminator right there, but yet he's waiting for Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor was saying the other week that the fight's not a done deal. Move on.
Sit here today is May time and doing it in Dublin, but you know, let's see.
Catteral Taylor, there was discussions yesterday that it might land on another platform from Eddie. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, look, we've been looking at that fight. It's the fact of whether it stacks up, you know, and it's not a fight we would do on pay-per-view. It's a fight maybe another platform would do on pay-per-view, and if it works out for everyone, and you know, it delivers a huge opportunity for Jack Catteral, we've been fortunate enough to promote, and it delivers him a big night, and it's not with us. We're not the kind of people to stand in the way of that.
It's all good Frank Smith giving it the spiel that, you know, we don't stand in our fighters' way. Let Anthony Joshua go to another platform and fight. Or Canelo when they had him under contract. What they're basically saying is that they wouldn't mind if somebody took Jack Catteral off our hands for one fight. There's no obvious big fights for the guy. That's what they're saying. And Jack has to understand where he is and where he's at and what level he's at. Although I don't think he priced himself out. I think Josh Taylor is pricing themselves out. You're not a pay-per-view draw that you can make these fights a more realistic goal. To a degree, Jack Catteral has to take what he can get. He's not a superstar on the back of nearly winning a controversial decision in 2022. Move on, but it looks like, hey, listen, that opportunity's gone. Hitchens is fighting that Argentinian. I didn't hear the Argentinian say a peep about, yo, I'm going to wait for this other opponent and this, that, and maybe I'm going to research my other options. No, he just took the fight. He just took the fight. And more fighters need a more grounded, realistic approach. Just because you're from Britain and you're on Matchroom doesn't mean there's special privileges or concessions for you, or, you know, there's big fights and pay-per-view. No, you're not a pay-per-view draw fighter. And the money he's probably looking for and Josh Taylor is looking for makes the fight less and less of a reality. Yeah? I always said, if that fight didn't happen in 2022, Jack Catteral should move on. But he didn't. He hasn't. And look, my opinion, I could be wrong, but Josh Taylor priced himself out. That's what I feel's happened. He's priced himself out of the fight. And you know something? He's never wanted to fight anyway. And that was the perfect way to get out of it. Price yourself out. And if he doesn't feel shamed that, everybody thinks he's lost, trying to shame him into taking the fight, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. Josh is eyeing different fights. When I previewed the first fight and I was breaking down the fight, I was saying I don't believe Josh Taylor can get the motivation to fight Jack Catteral. And despite the whole country, it seemed, or the whole of Britain, thinking he lost the fight and there should be a rematch, he's not going to be shamed into taking it. Because he probably still doesn't feel motivated. He just doesn't see Jack Catteral as a big deal. And Jack has to face that's the reality. He doesn't care about restoring his dignity against Jack Catteral, and Jack's got to move on. I think Sam Jones was hinting there was a bag of money. Because they've had to make him about 3 offers. Right? This is someone who's reluctant to take the fight. And you know what it is, yeah? Josh Taylor taking a rematch, in Josh's mind, is him admitting that he lost the first fight and he has to correct his wrongs. And he doesn't want to entertain that he lost the first fight. He's always pushed back on that. Eddie wrote the fight off as pay-per-view on DAZN. That's what he did, yeah? It's not like a situation you've got in America. We're going to watch inactive, out of form Keith Thurman fighting at a catchweight at 155 against Tszyu on pay-per-view. Matchroom ain't trying to put everything on pay-per-view like the PBC. You know what I mean? The PBC haven't learnt from what they was doing on Showtime and Fox. They're bringing it to Amazon Prime now. First card, Keith Thurman against Tszyu. Just for the sake of keeping it in-house, you're recycling old, brought down Keith Thurman just for the sake of keeping it all in-house. You know what I mean? When there's opportunities out there for Tszyu. Whether that means you use a PBC 154 pounder or someone who's on DAZN or ESPN to make the fight. No, you just got to keep the fight in-house at all means. What, you're going to charge $70, $80 to watch Keith Thurman and Tszyu? The Saudis are putting on Joshua versus Wallin, Wilder versus Parker, Dubois versus Miller for $40. Ring IQ's got a poll, and it's right, 90% say the fight's not pay-per-view worthy. 90%. And it's a strong sample size, but they're still going ahead with the fight. They're still going ahead with the fight. I'm sure Luis Ortiz didn't get much of a purse fighting that journeyman in Colombia the other week. He should have asked Al if he'd put it on pay-per-view. He probably would have said yes. Luis Ortiz versus journeyman on Amazon Prime. $80. Keith Thurman, 35 years of age, 3 fights in the last 6 years. I kid you not, 3 fights in the last 6 years. Scraped past Jose Cito Lopez, majority decision. Lost his WBA title to an aging Manny Pacquiao, got floored in the process, and then looked uninspired against Mario Barrios. Hasn't been one time for a minute, right? And this is who Tszyu will be defending his WBO 154-pound belt against. But let's not let Tszyu escape scot-free, because he's agreeing to the fight too. And look, the fight makes sense pay-per-view in Australia because Tim's a star over there, so it will do what numbers it does over there. But as for suffocating the American market with this pay-per-view, it's just like cruelty. They've only got 2 main outlets, ESPN and Amazon Prime. And Bob wouldn't dream. I curse Bob Arum out regular. He wouldn't dream of putting this on pay-per-view. I was on Twitter saying I'm not giving Tszyu a pass for taking this fight. And Ring IQ informed me that Erickson Lubin bailed on the fight. And while you could argue Lubin would have been marginally better, what's he done since Fundora pounded his face into a mess? What's he done since then? He's basically a failed prospect. So that wouldn't have been much better in my opinion. Lubin's claiming he didn't know there was a fight date, and it's a misunderstanding between him and his management. He's ducking the fight. And apparently the Thurman fight is not for the title. It's at 155. So let me just clear that up. It's at 155 catchweight. What has happened? to Keith Thurman. I would have preferred to see Keith Thurman fight Boots Ennis for the IBF belt at 147. Can Keith still make 147 at 35 and all the inactivity? Probably not. Why is it a catch weight at 155? Keith used to fight at 154, but why wouldn't he just fight the Tszyu at 154? He probably can't even make 154. Why would Keith take this fight at 35 years of age when Tszyu is at his prime, in his prime weight? Why would he take this fight with no belt, no opportunity to win a belt? He might need the money really badly. Some people are saying he's been used as a sacrifice, and I can understand where they're coming from, but he's took the option to take the fight. He knows what he's doing. Maybe he thinks he can beat Tszyu. But let's say he doesn't get to touch none of the Australian pay-per-view money, which I'm guessing he won't. He'll get some of the upside from the American money, but how much is it going to do in America? How much is he going to get paid to get his brains beaten in by Tszyu? Because that's what I envision seeing. I envision this is the last time we're going to see Keith Thurman one time in the big time after this beating, unless they just use him as a trial horse for the upcoming fighters at 154. To be fair, you know, the PBC hasn't been the worst for Tszyu. He's got good fights. Tony Harrison, Terrell Gusha, where he was flawed. But I don't get this fight here. I enjoyed the Brian Mendoza fight. I think that's when he was crowned full champion. I enjoyed that fight. It was a good fight, and Brian was a good contender. But I'm sure he went over there for Jamel Charlo. They're sure not going to deliver that to him. 100% not. Instead, they fed Jamel to Canelo in a fight that, in hindsight, was totally pointless. And they've got Rolly versus Pitbull Cruz as the chief support. Like, what are their credentials for fighting for the WBA title? Losing to Tank. One went the distance, one got stopped. Is that their credentials to fight for the WBA title? Neither has done anything at 135 or 140. But yet, they're in a world title fight at 140. Tank versus Frank Martin is another pay-per-view they're going to put up. Frank swerved Shakur Stevenson. Didn't want the work. Yeah? He's a decent challenger. But, what, a full-price pay-per-view? Frank Martin? We'll see what numbers it does. Maybe Tank can sell it, because it will be a case of Tank selling it by himself, because Frank Martin has no marquee value himself. Let's see what Tank can do. Is this his first fight since the pay-per-view success against Ryan Garcia? Yes, it is. Let's see what he can do.
How was that, the interaction with...
It was good. Look, Maurizio reached out to every major promoter and invited them to come.
I saw a few missing people there. Yeah. I didn't see Leonard there.
No, but I think it was just the major promoters. So it was...
Yeah, it was funny. It was funny. I mean, but on a serious note, everybody's working together. Everybody is working together. And like the PBC, it just looks like same old, same old, same old. And Turkey at a Sheik left us this very coded tweet. Not everybody is worthy of a second chance. And that's either aimed at Tank or Al Heyman. These random fights. You know, at one stage we were getting quality matchups. Porter versus Spence. Even Spence versus Ugas. Ugas versus Porter. Garcia versus Thurman. Thurman versus Porter. Pacquiao Ugas. Pacquiao Thurman. They were doing good things at welter at the PBC, but things have moved on. And they're still trying to recycle these 147 pounders from their heyday. Keith Thurman at 155 against Tszyu. Danny Garcia fighting for the middleweight title against Erislandy Lara. And surely they're not going to put Spence in with Crawford for a rematch at 147. Surely not. You can't just keep recycling the fighters who used to be good in meaningless fights. It doesn't make no sense. Next they'll be phoning up Sean Porter. You want to make a comeback? We've got a couple of million for you to take a fight on pay-per-view on Amazon Prime. Because they're struggling for attractions. You know, Ryan Garcia attaching himself to Floyd. Like, what are you playing at? You ran away from the Devin fight. Yeah, Devin, you can go fight Richardson and do 10,000 pay-per-view buys, blah, blah, blah. Saying he's going to fight Rolly, and now Rolly's signed to fight Cruz. Now, what's Ryan doing now? Like, all this fuss just to make a fight? You know, how immature is that? Floyd's my advisor now. You got any paperwork to back that up? You got to work in tandem with who you're signed to. Work in tandem with your promoter. Now, Oscar's saying there was nowhere near finalizing a Rolly deal. And I believe him. I 100% believe him. Oscar wanted to make the Haney fight. He knew that's the fight that made sense. Ryan was even saying, yeah, he wants the Haney fight. Then you talk to Floyd, and then all of a sudden, Floyd's putting Rolly in there with Pitbull. You got played.
So that I think the title will only be up for grabs for Felix, in my opinion. And yeah, push on now, crack on. for tomorrow night. Business as usual.
Well, let's grab a word with Matchroom CEO Frank Smith, who might be able to give us a little bit more clarity on the situation. If you use Darren's mic there, Frank. Lewis coming in.
I'll hold him. Yeah, I'll be your tripod.
£3 over the £147 limit. What happens now?
Yeah, obviously, earlier in the week, as always, the BBFC do their check weights. Lewis Crocker didn't manage to make that check weigh, so there was a weight limit set that he couldn't come below. Felix's team were aware they wanted to make 147 still. He wanted the opportunity to win the title, so the title will be on the line for Jose, but unfortunately not for Lewis. You know, it's one of those rules for the safety of the boxers that the BBFC put in place, but we've got a great fight ahead of us.
So Lewis Crocker missed the check weight earlier this week, so that disqualifies him, depending how much he missed the check weight by, I'm guessing. That ruling is to protect the safety of Lewis Crocker, who missed the weight by £3. So he was eliminated from fighting from the title, I guess, when he missed the check weigh-in this week. But here's the thing. Lewis Crocker's team will want to avoid a disaster like Gary Cully did in the Republic of Ireland against Jose Felix when he got turned over. Big upset. Do I believe Lewis Crocker could have came closer to the stipulated weight at the check weigh-in? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because at this stage here, getting a W is more important than holding on to your WBO Intercontinental belt. The W is more important. And he seems like he's quite a big 147 pounder. If he was disqualified from fighting for the title because he couldn't come in at 147, obviously, well, how heavy could he have weighed in? He came in £3 above the weight. How heavy could he have came in? 3, 4, 5, 6 pounds? How safe is that for the opponent? You're worried about him taking off too much weight, but are you not worried about him having a considerable weight advantage by not having to take the extra pounds off? Jose Felix is not a big 147 pounder. People commented how shredded he looked, and he's trained really hard for this one. And look, Jose himself, after Lewis didn't make the check weigh-in, he could have came in heavier himself. He had the option, but he's chose to come in at 147 so he can take the belt, which is a strange decision to me. He's here on the strength of beating Gary Cully last year. That's why he's here, not because you had some intercontinental belt from a sanctioning body. It seems like a strange decision to me, but he's not a big welter, so maybe making 147 is really easy for him anyway. I saw him fighting Sandor Martin at 140 a couple of years back. But yeah, I think they've done it purposely to give Lewis an added advantage over an opponent that I saw fighting at 140 only a couple of years back. It should be a good fight. And Chevron Clark versus Tommy McCarthy. McCarthy was banged up, wasn't he, last time by the European champion, Shellac. So Chev should win that. And they got Paddy Donovan on there as well. So it looks like a decent card. Northern Ireland are back with boxing.